I would like now to introduce today's presenters. Michael Jensen, Chief Research Officer, guides the practice's research agenda and architecture by leveraging his extensive experience to identify and unlock emerging trends. Bharat, Practice Director, is a member of Everest Group's global sourcing practice. He assists clients in the adoption and impact of technologies such as robotic process automation and artificial intelligence as part of service delivery in GBSs. Amardeep Modi, Vice President, is a member of the Service Optimization Technologies team and assists clients on topics related to technologies such as robotic process automation and artificial intelligence that are disrupting the way global services are being delivered. And with that, I would like to turn things over to Michael.
Thank you very much, and hello, everybody. Today's topic, as labeled on the in the webinar, was intelligent automation and how it will help solve our talent war. So, talent. That seems like what everybody's talking to. I was at actually an in-person conference just recently, and talent. You know, can you find it? Is it going? What's the price you have to pay for it? And while this used to be something that was limited to kind of digital high-end talent challenges, it seems like it's spread through the entire economy for all sectors, or for many sectors anyway. When we talk about how are we going to solve this, you know, automation is right at the top of the list. And so today is going to be kind of our how can we help make that work, and what are the challenges we need to overcome to make that a reality in terms of mitigating the impact of the talent shortage. So as we talk about some of the business challenges that we're seeing in the market right now, obviously we talk about talent, the changing business models, the need to improve the customer, and almost as important in the employee experience, supply chain disruptions. We're at the time where everybody's starting to really worry about this, not just chip shortages in cars, but through the entire supply chain is finding challenges. Business resilience, risk management, things we were faced as we think about the COVID experience, and then obviously costs are rising. So Amar, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing as the challenges to scaling automation adoption, and we'll walk through those in the webinar today.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. No, absolutely. I think these are all the key challenges that we see businesses facing in today's world, right? Post-pandemic world, where some of these have been further aggravated. And while automation is a solution to a lot of these business problems, scaling automation has its own set of challenges related to governance, automation talent, change management, strategy, and maintaining a healthy pipeline of automation opportunities. It's interesting to note that lack of talent is a common barrier to scaling both the business as well as automation initiatives, right? And that's one of the focal point of this webinar, right? To talk about the importance of talent as well.
So Amar, that's almost like the chicken and the egg issue, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So moving on. Now, it's important to understand what is automation, right? And while there are different types of all sorts of definition about automation floating, it's important to note that automation is not limited to implementing any specific tool in a standalone manner. It is really about an interplay of multiple tools and technologies that form part of the intelligent automation ecosystem to deliver a holistic solution and scalable business outcomes. Moving on, we see automation becoming a strategic priority for enterprises. And Michael, do you want to kind of set the stage for some of the things that we want to discuss today?
Yeah, the way we're going to go through this today is we're going to take you through our convictions, provocations, and controversies. So think of our convictions are kind of the foundational beliefs. Those are the facts that we know today. They're not really anything to really dispute. They're just kind of lay that kind of groundwork. The provocations, those are the things we think are creative ideas for value creation. And then the controversies are things that we are looking at and thinking about actively, and we'll be doing further research as we move through the next 6 to 12 months. So we're going to give you a 5, 4, 2 on those conversations, and Amar is going to get us started on those.
Great. And again, we have these set of 5 convictions and our foundational beliefs, as Michael just mentioned. And we'll go through some of these important convictions. So starting with the first one, right? And as I was kind of talking about how we see automation becoming a strategic priority for enterprises. Now, if we look into it, what we see is that in the aftermath of the pandemic, the demand for automation has not only amplified, but has become one of the key priorities for enterprises to ensure business resilience and growth. What's happening as a consequence of that is enterprises have started to reorient their automation programs to support accelerated scale and business value realization, as we'll see in the next slide. Earlier, automation initiatives were heavily focused on improving cost and operational efficiencies aimed at automating very low complexity rules-based use cases, and were quite siloed in nature with limited collaboration between different parts of the organization. And things have really started to evolve at an accelerated pace now. Michael, how do you see some of these things evolve and mature?
Yeah, so the nature of demand is changing here. So certainly this has become a C-suite agenda item. So as we talked about earlier, improving the employee and or the customer and employee experience has been a huge part of the conversation. And so as we know that you can't, the chicken and the egg of the talent conversation, and as part of the business change, all this stuff comes together to say, hey, we need to make this work. And it's not a question of, should we invest? It's a question of, we have to invest here. But then the other part of this conversation is there are new technologies that are coming on that allow us to even take it further than we've had before. And so, Mar, you and I have talked a lot about AI, and let's talk about that for a second here. How has AI progressed? You showed it on your previous chart, but how has AI progressed in helping this out?
Absolutely, I think AI is an important lever, right? That kind of forms part of the intelligent automation ecosystem, as we looked at in one of the previous slides, right? And what we're seeing is AI is taking 2 forms, right? One is in terms of AI-based productized automation solutions like intelligent document processing and conversational AI. And the second is in terms of some of the AI services or point solutions that really provides additional skills to some of the rules-based capabilities that RPA provides. So what we are seeing overall is AI is really expanding the scope to which automation can be applied, and that is really important to scale automation initiatives across the enterprise. And it's not just about RP and AI, right? And as we looked in the previous slide, and as we'll also look in the subsequent slides, it's really about that entire ecosystem that has formed around intelligent automation that consists of RPA, AI, process mining, process orchestration, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it's really kind of homogenized. I mean, I think that's one of the things that, we used to talk about the robots are coming, The reality is that's not what happened. It became a series of progressive components here that are making it the impressiveness of what we're seeing in its kind of in that whole ecosystem. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Let's just get some input from the audience here, and let's get a sense. We're going to open up a quick poll here and get a sense from you in terms of where you're at on the automation adoption journey. And so we have quite a few attendees. Let's go ahead and open up the poll. And are you kind of in siloed adoption? Are you coordinated adoption? Are you doing it across business units? Is it an enterprise strategic initiative? So let's talk about that for just a second here. We'll get your input in here. All right, this is interesting here. It's a horse race. It's almost identical answers across 3 of the choices here. Leave it open for another 5 seconds. Get a few more people to put their answers in. Man, it's going to come down to the wire here. It's going to be a photo finish, guys. It literally is a photo finish. All right, let's close it off there. And we'll go ahead and show the results there. Literally, we have 3 answers that are almost exactly at the wire there. Amar, anything that you're surprised with?
No, I don't think I'm kind of surprised to see this result. But it's interesting to note that when we did a similar poll last year and asked the same question, right? And then if we kind of compare the results from last time to this time, we are certainly seeing a more number of folks where automation has become a CXO agenda, right? Which is in line with the trend that we are seeing in the broader market as well. So I think that's kind of a validation to what we are seeing in the broader market, and the audience that we have here are kind of also representing the broader trend that we are seeing in the market. So yeah, I mean,
yeah. What's still interesting here, you still got a full third of the audience here still in that first category of siloed adoption. So we're nowhere near a mature market when I read things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a lot of scope for the market to mature, because if you look at the overall maturity of the market, it's still has still not reached that level of maturity, right? And that's why we see 30% of the responses who are kind of still in the siloed adoption category, right, where automation is limited to a few businesses. But I'm sure this will kind of continue to reduce, and the number of responses and the number of enterprises in the enterprise-wide strategic initiative or coordinated adoption category will continue to increase.
All right, so let's move on to our next conviction.
Yeah. So I think this is a kind of a good segue into to the next conviction that we have here, right? And what we're seeing is that organizations who have adopted a holistic automation solution are realizing greater scale and value from their initiatives. Over the past few years, we have seen an accelerated adoption of a more holistic automation solution among enterprises, right? In line with what we just discussed. And the pandemic has only amplified this trend. Enterprises' intelligent automation ecosystem has expanded beyond standalone RPA to include other digital levers such as intelligent document processing, conversational AI, process mining, process orchestration, as you can see here, the data that we have. On the left-hand side, what you can see is how the holistic automation approach has really accelerated in terms of the percentage of projects where we see RPA and AI being deployed in a joined up manner versus what it was a few years back, right? And on the right-hand side, what we see is how different technologies are becoming part of enterprises' automation journey, right? They may still be at a very early maturity level in terms of deploying some of the technologies like conversational AI or intelligent document processing or process mining, but it's kind of becoming in part of their consideration and part of their planning for automation initiatives. Moving on. So it's what that is resulting in is greater scale and value realization for organizations who have adopted this holistic automation approach. And as we can see, organizations have achieved greater scale and business value realization, those who have adopted this holistic automation approach, and were able to automate significantly higher number of processes across most business functions. And consequently, the impact achieved has also been much higher. This also brings me to the next conviction that I have here. The value from automation, right, which is not restricted to only a few process areas and or business functions. We see it delivering significant value across business functions. And while the relative automation potential and benefits may vary across functions, enterprises are really expecting their automation programs to yield significant benefits across nearly every business function, including contact center, HR, finance and accounting, vertical specific processes, so on and so forth. As is also evident from the data that we have here. Moving on.
So let me ask you a question there, Mark, before we go on.
Sure.
So these are looking like 25, 30% savings on labor. That's an incredible number. And so that's good news. Where do you see the opportunities that may not be as appropriate here? So where do we see some challenges and maybe even some failures in adoption?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very pertinent question, Michael, because it's important to also keep an eye out for some of the challenges that organizations are facing, right? So while it looks all good news, but what we see is that organizations face challenges in scaling the success, right? So while we see a lot of organizations have been able to successfully pilot automation initiatives and we're able to achieve quick wins and initial successes. When it comes to scaling those successes is where we see a lot of them struggle, and hence the number of enterprises who have really scaled up their automation initiatives are much lower than what we would expect it to be. Right. And again, this is also something that I'll kind of touch upon in one of the subsequent convictions. But yeah, I think it's important to also note that here. While automation is delivering significant value across business functions and process areas, what is also important for those enterprises who are starting their automation journey is to kind of identify the right process areas or the right processes to start their automation initiatives, because it's important for them to establish a kind of strong business case for automation, and they can do that by demonstrating some quick wins and early successes to really get funding for scaling some of those initiatives and successes across the organization.
Okay.
So moving on to the so if you could go back to the previous slide, Kiara. Yeah, thanks. So so what we are seeing is automation adoption is witnessing significant growth across nearly all market segments. And while industry-specific processes, finance and accounting, contact center account for most of the automation adoption, we are seeing accelerated adoption in some of the other areas such as HR and document management. Similarly, while BFSI, healthcare, and CPG and retail account for a majority of the automation market, other verticals such as high-tech and telecom, manufacturing, travel, and public sector are witnessing significant growth. Now, it's important to note that GBS and shared services organizations are playing a key role in scaling adoption of automation and delivering value to the enterprises. Bharat, what are your thoughts on that front?
Absolutely, Amar, and thanks for setting this up, right? Just to set the definition of GBS, we are referring to organizations that are in offshore or nearshore locations, possibly even onshore locations that shared services set up where you've got work that is being delivered in a remote manner. GBS organizations are truly becoming the nerve center of automation in today's world. And I know I have got some of my GBS friends in the participants today who would agree with me. The trend of adopting automation is only increasing. Now, why is this happening? GBS organizations obviously provide certain benefits, primarily starting with the co-location of different groups, be it operations and IT and other stakeholders together. There is more agility when it comes to developing and deploying these solutions. To put some of this in perspective, we looked at recent setups that have happened, the GBS setups since 2020. Every 3 out of 5 GBS center setups that we've seen are focusing on automation as a clear mandate. And this is all about having a COE and helping drive solutions. And as we see on the next slide, it's not just about driving automation solutions within a GBS organization. If we can move to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. When we analyze some of the organizations that are driving automation from their GBS, we notice that about 70% of them are playing quite an active role when it comes to supporting the global agenda. And of that, almost half of them are actually playing a role where they are executing the strategy for the global enterprise. They're playing a key decision maker role, influencing go, no go opportunities. So want to highlight the fact that GBS organizations, while they have a strong value proposition in terms of delivering services to the global enterprise, are now taking up the digital mantle even more seriously, and probably even using solutions like automation to accelerate the overall center growth and evolution as well. And this is not just limited to deploying solutions or capabilities within the center. Today, we see organizations, let's say in locations like India or Poland, support businesses or geographies anywhere in the world, even the ones that they may not be supporting under the existing GBS construct. And what makes it more interesting, as we see on the next slide, is that the type of support that's being provided is also, there's a wide array of services that are being delivered. So it's not just limited to providing, let's say, a coding or a development support. Today, we see GBS organizations put the consulting hat, providing advisory support to different business units that may want to explore automation on their own. It could be providing platform hosting support infrastructure for, let's say, smaller entities which may not be interested in investing a larger amount or a larger value for getting a whole bot platform in place. And of course, the end-to-end automation support as well, right from solutioning, the initial consulting support, identifying capabilities, and so on and so forth. Net GBS organizations are playing a big role in the automation adoption, and that is only likely to further increase as we go forward. But then, having said that, the opportunity is still huge. GBS, yes, they are playing a big role, but if you ask me, are organizations really, extracting great value from their solutions? I think they've probably barely scratched the surface. Amar, what do you think about that?
Absolutely, I think that's a kind of a good segue into the next conviction as well, right? And what we see is that a large majority of enterprises are, in the early stages of their automation journey. Right, as I also touched upon as part of one of the previous questions that Michael asked me about precautions or things to watch out for. So if we look at a typical intelligent automation journey, it follows 4 key phases from planning to steady state adoption. While many enterprises have successfully piloted initiatives for low complexity use cases, they continue to struggle with scaling these projects to enterprise-wide programs. As a consequence, the value that enterprises have realized from these initiatives remain much lower than their overall potential. And that also brings us to our next poll question around challenges that organizations are facing.
Yeah, so let's get the perspective here of, it's great to see that we're seeing great scaling and stuff like that, but there are challenges here. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a quick poll here for you to bring in and tell us what you're seeing as the challenges. Got 5 good answers here: maintaining a healthy pipeline of automation, implementing the right change, finding the talent, creating a strategy, and removing roadblocks from compliance security. What are you seeing as your number 1, 2 challenges out there? Okay, getting some answers coming in fast and furious now. Looks like we got 2 that are kind of leading the pack. Get a few more answers here. We'll leave it open for another 5 seconds. It's actually more of a horse race than I thought it was going to be. Not a photo finish, I don't think. All right, let's go ahead and close it down. So the number 1 challenge here, Amar, looks like it's that creating a robust automation strategy, and then again, another more strategy conversation around change management. And how you seen that compared to previous versions?
Yeah, no, I think first of all, it's important to note that all these 5 challenges are what we see enterprises face when it comes to scaling their automation initiatives, right? And while the extent of one challenge for particular set of enterprises may rate higher than the other. All of these are important barriers. I mean, key barriers to scaling automation initiatives and value realization. But it's interesting to kind of see that creating a robust automation strategy and roadmap is topping the list that we have here, and it's aligned. It's kind of a reflection on the maturity of the automation market that we have currently, right? I think organizations are really looking to devise a really holistic automation strategy because they want to realize scale, they want to realize the strategic business value. It is becoming a CXO agenda, and it's become increasingly important to have that holistic view, holistic strategy, long-term view when it comes to devising the strategy and roadmap for transformation. And that also is related to the pipeline related challenge, right? Which also was one of the top challenges here, because it's important to have a clear roadmap in terms of what all opportunities, what are use cases organizations would want to automate going forward, and a mechanism that will ensure that pipeline is maintained and is sustained in a healthy manner. So I think some of the other challenges around change management and talent so are kind of quite common and quite obvious, and that is a challenge with any such transformation initiatives that we see organizations looking to deploy in the market.
So, Mar, I was a little surprised about the finding automation talent. That was actually the lowest ranked challenge there. So I guess that's good news. I know that that we're going to move into citizen developer here, and Bharat's going to talk a little bit about that. I know I went to one of the early adopter sessions with one of the service providers here, and I actually wrote an automation. I wrote my first robotic program here, so I guess just about anybody can do it. Bharat, tell us what you're seeing.
Absolutely, Michael. In some ways, yes, anybody can do it. I think at some level that needs to be the outcome of a good automation program as well. As long as you want to scale it up faster, it cannot be just limited to certain groups. Before we get more into the citizen model, I just wanted to call out the key definitions, and we've listed some of it in the subsequent slides as well. To be clear, when we say citizen model, we're not referring to IT stakeholders or developers per se. We're referring to stakeholders who would otherwise be delivering, let's say, an accounting or a procurement or an operations kind of a role. And these are the resources who are upskilled or trained in automation technologies to get their hands on experience and develop these solutions. And this is different from the continuous improvement or business excellence groups that we often see. Interestingly, a majority of the mature adopters are already leveraging the citizen model in some form or fashion. We'll see the different types of adoption and the prevalence over it, but definitely there is a clear mandate and focus in terms of wanting to drive this. As we look at the differences in the way citizen model works, and upfront to call out, a citizen model is not an alternative to the traditional way in which automations are run and managed. It's more of a augmentation role wherein it enables faster scaling up of solutions. In the traditional top-down approach, you would typically see mandates, COE kind of taking up the entire mantle to drive very process-centric approach, more emphasis on getting third-party resources, significant involvement of IT and so on. Whereas in the citizen-led approach, it's a slightly different one. Think of it as an empowered approach where businesses or business units, they have individual mandates or goals to drive automation, and the citizen developers or the resources are going to play a key role in enabling this approach. It's a more user-centric one. The folks who are actually working on solutions day in, day out, they kind of get to identify the solutions that could potentially make their lives easier, somewhere helping in better change management and acceptance of these solutions as well. And we've seen organizations scale this up in a fairly big manner as well. Some of the financial services organizations saving as high as 500,000 hours of effort through the citizen model kind of adoption. Of course, the prevalence is currently low, but guess what? It is rapidly increasing. And we are seeing more and more organizations wanting to explore this and at least try and use this as an avenue to further democratize the solutions. It does have its own set of challenges. While the citizen model does provide benefits in terms of, as I said, better change management, greater proliferation into the businesses, penetration, and so on, it does require initial set of investment in training. We'll talk a little more about the governance aspects as well as we move forward. We've seen instances of higher attrition for certain resources who are trained, and that's pretty much in line with what you would see in any other tech-based solutions as well. Initially, the quality of solutions could be lower, and of course, the last point around balancing the regular delivery versus automation-specific support. While these challenges do exist, there are several examples where organizations have been able to build a stronger case for running citizen model programs as well. Now, moving on, the important aspect to understand is, yes, we know what a citizen model is now, but how can organizations actually extract greater value? How easy or difficult is it to drive solutions? We did an analysis of several organizations and we looked at the stage in which these organizations are in terms of their citizen model adoption. Clustered them into three. One, early stages, nascent, where the COE, the central hub, is still owning a major part of overall delivery. And then scaling up, this is where there are pilots, there are solutions that are already being deployed by citizen developers. Of course, the COE plays an overall role in terms of governance, but it's slightly lower. The mature ones are where we are seeing independently, the citizen model almost acting as a steady state business on its own. It's in an autopilot mode, very limited intervention, or the COE does not really play much role in terms of execution. They just play a governance or an overall enabler role when it comes to driving. These are the organizations where they've been able to identify the right set of resources, able to get the right governance mechanisms in place, monitoring metrics for monitoring progress, and so on.
So Bharath, I got a question for you. Who doesn't make a good citizen developer?
Michael, I think you're one for sure. Just kidding. Let me do one better. In terms of folks who are doing better suited for automation within organizations, I think these would include folks that have a strong business context, people who understand the broader enterprise goals and have spent some time in the business to understand how the processes, how the culture works. We see folks who have strong collaborative skills, resources who may tend to work with different groups, people who act as champions. Once they deploy solutions, they are able to take up and evangelize the benefits of these solutions to different parts of the group. GBS organizations, interestingly, kind of fall as a good candidate for this. We see several enterprises deploy or try out citizen model benefits within their GBS organization as well. Those are some of the good candidates to initially pilot and start the program with. And as an extension of it, if we were to talk about some of the best practices that we see these mature adopters, the one on the right side, follow. On the next page, we've listed some of the best practices, both from a training and an initial setting up perspective and also from a governance perspective. We've seen these organizations start with resources who may also have certain basic IT or coding skills. This is in addition to the characteristics that I just mentioned some time back. Let's say even if it's a simple VBA coding, essentially it's about that mindset where people are able to understand how things move in an IT environment. We're seeing organizations curate specific training programs that include both theoretical or even classroom sessions and also on-the-job practical training sessions. Working with initial set of citizen model developers, the COE playing a greater role does enable or help accelerate the journey better. In terms of governance, and this is where it can get a little tricky, especially for, let's say, organizations in life sciences industry or other regulated ones where there are several compliance related challenges that may potentially come up. We've seen few best practices, starting with identifying the type of work that can be included as part of citizen-led program, at least in the initial stages, so that there is more clarity and comfort in terms of what is being leveraged. Organizations, some of them also develop a risk-benefit framework for each process. so that they really understand if something that's done by a citizen developer, is the risk involved worth the benefit that's likely to come out of it. Creating separate bot platforms so that the enterprise automation, which is run by the COE, does not necessarily get impacted in the event that a platform or a bot should fail in the other ones that's being managed by the citizen models. And initiate the program with more supervision. I think this is something common with almost all programs. But these are definitely some of the best practices we do. And moving on along this whole journey, there is also a lot of focus on measuring or at least monitoring the performance. Again, the idea is not to put specific metrics up front and make them as targets. At least with the case of citizen model, we don't want that really to come into play. But we do see an evolution in terms of how the metrics are being monitored, starting with, let's say, the share of ideas that are being generated. This is more to give a pat on the back to resources, encouraging them to come up with more and more ideas that can potentially feed into the system in the pipeline. Eventually, we are seeing other benefits, such as other metrics, such as changes in turnaround time, increase in responses, reduction in cycle time, errors, increase in productivity as a result of more efficient delivery. And in some of the advanced adopters, we are also seeing the automation COE monitor the effort that is reduced, the COE effort that is reduced, which has been eventually taken up by the business resources. As the model matures, there is a clear shift in the kind of metrics that are being leveraged. Again, we're not seeing these metrics become targets as of now. At least now more focuses on trying to help and build a program rather than have very strong boundaries around it. But it's definitely heading towards the direction where this model could potentially be a game changer when it comes to scaling up adoption of solutions faster.
Yeah, Bharath, I'm not surprised here either. The GBS being a potentially good home, and especially on the citizen developer, just because the whole history of the GBS has really been about process excellence and been about assuming the overall control of end-to-end processes, or at least understanding how they fit into the overall broader scheme of the organization. So it makes a good sense here that they have all the incentive to make things work here. All right, so let's get into this talent war just a little bit more. Can automation help here? And just as a little background slide here, some fresh data that just put the slide together yesterday. So it's real-time data here, and just emphasizing the nature of how profound this talent challenge and shortage is going to be. So the blue line represents the number of job openings, and the orange line represents the number of unemployed here. And this is a US-based set of metrics here. It's kind of hard to get this on a global basis, but I've seen other similar set of metrics for Europe. What you see is the job openings are at all-time highs, and normally you would see the unemployed being higher than job openings, but for the first time, it's at an all-time high and climbing too. So as the unemployed drop and job openings increase, what you're starting to see is attrition. You're starting to see voluntary turnover there, 4.3 million. I think that's up over 1.3 million or 1.4 million from the previous year. So, we got this combination of excitement in the economy. We've got a lot of demographic stuff that's working against us, and kind of something we've never seen in the history of our country, and history of Europe, and all the information that I've been looking at, and we'll have in a future webinar. It's going to get worse. It's not. This is not something that's going to be, hey, it's a post-pandemic phenomena. This is really not being driven by the pandemic, but really being driven by another set of factors here. So, Mar, talk to us about where we're going here in terms of helping attrition.
Sure. And first of all, Michael, I think that is quite an interesting data that you highlighted there, right? Kind of a reflection of the kind of talent demand supply gap that continues to grow bigger and larger. And while it might not seem obvious at first, but automation can really go a long way to help organizations solve for this talent shortage. The best place to find more people is in the people that you have, right? And by improving employee productivity, employee experience, and enabling people to focus on the work that really matters, automation leads to increased capacity, lower attrition, and hence lower hiring requirements. Moving on, I think we have really talked a lot about the importance of automation, right? But I think it's important to also touch upon the importance of partnering with an enterprise grade automation provider, right? And especially this is especially important because automation is a burgeoning market, rapidly evolving in terms of technologies and delivery models. Consequently, one of the key factors to ensuring success in automation journey is to partner with an enterprise grade automation provider. And as we look into some of the key characteristics of an enterprise grade automation solution, what we see is that it's more than just product features and functionalities. While it is a key factor for enterprise grade solution, it is important for organizations to also consider other key characteristics such as product training and support, ecosystem of services and technology partners, and commercial models. If you look at the next slide, again, as part of our research, right, we do PEAK Matrix assessments that are really aimed at helping enterprises better understand the provider landscape and evaluate the right enterprise grade solutions for them. I think this is important. This is an important consideration for organizations, and what we see is that organizations are turning to some of these assessments to really help them shortlist their technology vendors, and hence we have shared the links to some of our PEAK Matrix assessments for various technologies. And Michael, do you also want to set the stage for what our audience could get as part of the webinar?
Yeah, let's go back one slide here. So one of the things, I've got this on a 32-inch monitor here, and I can tell you that the number of companies on each one of those PEAK matrices is like 20 to 30 different dots on there. So and for some of those, the names are very obvious, and some of the names are not as obvious. And so one of the things about the PEAK matrix is, yes, you should always look to the upper right to see what the leaders are doing, but those may not be the right companies for your organization. So we find good value in the rest of the quadrants, or the rest of the PEAK matrix there, specifically if you're looking for a geo-specific or an industry-specific solution, or a function-specific solution. So we encourage you not just to look automatically to the upper right and stay there. We encourage you to look at the entirety of the PEAK matrix. And so what Amar has on here is 4 different views of the automation landscape. And so what we're prepared to do here, since we don't have time to go through and dissect those, each of those markets vendor by vendor, what we wanted to do is offer for enterprises, if you're interested in digging deeper on any one of those topics, we're going to open up a quick poll here that you can ask us to set up a future meeting with you to kind of dig deeper on the RPA, the IDP, the conversational AI, or the process mining, and we'll provide you a deeper dive and an executive summary of what we see in those marketplace, in a conversation with either Amar or somebody on Amar's team to walk you through that. So let us know if that's something of interest to you, and we'll take it from there. So expecting a follow-up sometime in the next week or so. All right, so let's move on from there. And so what we're going to do is end with our controversies, and these are things that you and the team are thinking about here. Let's hear what you guys are interested in and what the debate's all about.
Yep, and again, these are some of those questions, right, that we are also exploring as part of our research, right? And if you look at the first one, so I think we talked enough about the need for a holistic automation solution, and that is pretty established, right? And we are seeing increasing trend towards organizations going for a holistic automation solution to really scale the successes and the value. However, from a sourcing standpoint, enterprises could either go with a best of breed approach or a single platform approach. At this point, it is difficult to say which one will prevail, as both these approaches offer different advantages. But when we look into it, we find that there is no one size fits all approach here. And enterprises need to evaluate the pros and cons of each of these in the context of their objectives and environmental factors such as organization structure and IT landscape to decide which would work the best for them. Bharat,
yeah,
what are we seeing in terms of the extent to which we can push the citizen-led model?
Yeah, citizen model is great. We keep hearing it often, but the flip side of it also comes true. And I know we've got a few questions as well around this, which we'll take it up after this. How far can we really push the citizen model? I mean, is all the effort that we're putting in terms of upskilling and getting the resources in place really going to help us? Again, this is an emerging hypothesis. Currently, we are seeing organizations that have been successful when it comes to scaling. Yes, it has taken time for them. It's not an overnight journey. Organizations have made tweaks, changes to their operating models to enable this, and have often taken a periodic assessment to see where the program is moving. But how much can this be scaled? Is this something that could truly become a citizen-led model in its true sense, as in, let's say, a robot that anybody and every resource can develop and deploy? I think we're still too early from that journey, but this is definitely something that several organizations are looking to grow and evolve as part of their overall automation program.
All right, very good. So let's take this to some of these questions we hear. We got quite a few questions. And if you have additional questions you'd like to ask Amar or myself or Bharat, feel free to type them into the Q&A panel. And let me start with the first one here. So the theme of this was focusing on how can automation help solve the talent shortages and challenges that we're facing there. But I think we all agree that there's something else. So there's some other benefits that automation can bring here. So the question is, referencing benefits from automation, can you talk about the business value created instead of the straight FTE productivity savings?
Yep. No, I think this is where we are seeing the enterprise's objective shift towards, right, as we talked about, right, that it's no longer about cost and productivity and operational efficiency. Right. It's now increasingly about improving customer experience, right? And from that perspective, we are seeing a lot of enterprises, especially those who have adopted a holistic automation approach, report a substantial increase in their customer experience over pre-automation scenario. So not saying that those who have just deployed RPA have not witnessed improvement. But I think we also showed some of the data that we have there, right? That kind of demonstrates how the level of benefit or extent of benefit is more for those who have adopted a more holistic automation approach, and they have also been able to scale it to larger number of processes and more number of business units.
Yeah. So I think if you're trying to grow your business if you're a CEO trying to grow your business by 20%, you're not going to be able to scale it by hiring 20% more employees. It's probably not going to be feasible for you to find that many bodies out there to solve the growth challenge. So the implication is you want to grow 20%, hire 10% more, get 10% more productivity out of your staff. And the other part of this thing is, that it's the softer part of it too, that you talked about the customer experience and the productivity to serving the customer better. But there's also the improvement to the attrition rates on the employee side. So if your employees are not happy or they're doing routine work and you're able to drive down, make the employee experience better, and drive down attrition rates or at least reduce the need to leave, you won't solve that completely with automation, but certainly can be a big step in that direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think Bharat, I'll let you add to that too, in terms of the GBS organizations. People are aspiring to move up the kind of the value proposition in terms of the processes they're addressing too. So they actually want to get rid of some of the more routine things.
Absolutely, Michael. One of the lens that we often use in our conversations is your automation program helping drive a competitive advantage for the global enterprise? The option is only yes, because there is a lot of value in doing that. So it's no longer about cost savings, no longer about efficiency savings. And we're not necessarily talking about revenue impact. Today, we are seeing organizations leverage automation solutions, let's say, to improve their cybersecurity landscape, which is directly enabling the organization reduce threats, better experience for the resources, for the customers, and so on. So it's a holistic solution, and I think if organizations are not really using that lens of looking at automation as a competitive advantage, probably missing out on extracting that value as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that a bit more, right? So when we talk about strategic value, right, in today's world, and as Bharat also highlighted, right, it's about increasing competitive intensity, and for organizations to ensure that they are resilient and they remain competitive, and also grow and thrive in this competitive environment. That means they need to ensure that the business model that they have is in line with the current consumer behavior, the current market requirements, right? And what we're seeing a lot of organizations being able to achieve with automation is to enable digital capabilities, right? For example, things like loan origination. So moving from a very manual manual intensive loan origination process to a digital creating a digital capability for doing loan origination is in a much shorter time frame than what this bank was able to do earlier. So I think we are increasingly seeing these kind of use cases that organizations keep in mind when they plan for their automation initiatives in a more holistic manner.
So let's take that one step further here. Next question I've got here is, do you see reducing talent for routine activity being the issue that automation can solve? I think the answer is, we've said that yes, but what about the skills and capabilities required to sustain that automation?
Sorry, Michael, could you repeat that?
So what about the skills and capability required to sustain that automation? So in other words, what does a team need to do to make this happen? I think, Bharath, maybe that's right up your alley in terms of how do you make that work in a citizen developer plus model?
Yeah. I think even one step before citizen developer model, Michael, one of the key differentiators for successful adopters is their strong focus on building that awareness and change management effort. Automation is no longer a solution that is reserved for a specific group. Evangelizing the benefits and capabilities of the solutions is a must for organizations, and this feeds into broader innovation charter, broader value addition charter that organizations have, and that is going to form the bedrock for helping sustain the automation and capability. So it's not just about newer technologies or having capabilities to support it, but how soon is that being absorbed within the organization? Is the mindset and the culture right there, up right there to help doing it? Citizen model definitely is one of the solutions for this. Again, while the number of examples may be lower, we are definitely seeing significant advances that mature organizations have been able to push through using the citizen model. We are seeing, as I mentioned, one of the examples earlier, up to 500,000 hours of productivity or savings that is completely driven by the citizen model, citizen group. This in addition to what's being developed by the core COE and the automation group as well. So Michael, definitely yes. I would first prioritize the need for creating better awareness and change management, and top it up with augmenting using citizen model kind of solutions.
Yeah, and I think that's you'll you've had successes when automation is just part of the conversation, not the conversation.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to ensuring that organizations have the right skills and talent for scaling automation, right? I think what we have seen organizations who have been able to do that successfully is, instead of heavily relying on just in-house talent, they don't shy away from taking external help, right? Yeah. So there are service providers, system integrators who provide a lot of good quality services, and that can come in really handy. So organizations should not shy away from taking external help, and that could also help kickstart some of their initial initiatives and also scale some of the programs as they continue to ramp up their internal capabilities.
All right, Amar, I'm going to kick it up here. This is a pretty hairy question. How are organizations thinking about intelligent automation in the context of a larger application estate modernization by transferring systems of engagement or record, i.e. Salesforce, ServiceNow, SAP? Can the two coexist?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very interesting question, right? And and to answer that, right, I think it's important to also reflect upon what's happening in the market, right? So what we're seeing is big tech enterprise application providers, like SAP, Salesforce, they are increasingly getting into the automation market through acquisitions or through in-house investments. So we have already seen a lot of acquisitions made by SAP to acquire RPA capabilities, to acquire process mining capabilities, and that kind of tells us something, that automation is becoming an increasingly important component for such big tech enterprise application providers as well, right? And SAP, Salesforce, Microsoft, IBM Software Group, they have all kind of made significant investments and continue to make significant investments to not only partner with the best of breed automation technology vendors, but as I said, also invest into acquiring these capabilities so that they can offer a holistic automation solution by themselves, right? Especially for those organizations who may want to, who may prefer a one-stop shop kind of an approach versus, integrating different technology solutions together. So I think that really tells us the importance of automation in the broader enterprise application ecosystem. And going forward, we expect to see automation really becoming a mainstream investment for enterprises, right? Directly or indirectly, because when they will be adopting SAP, they would automatically be adopting RPA or other automation capabilities that will come along with SAP solutions.
Okay. All right, I got a little lighter one here. I think I have the best answer though, but we'll see what you guys can say. So do you foresee a future where automation will take on very complex tasks like salary hikes, et and my answer would be, as long as I'm writing the automation, I'm good with that. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So sorry, Michael, could you repeat that question? I didn't get that.
Foresee a future where automation will take on very complex tasks like salary hikes? So is your new boss, is the RPA automation going to be the person that determines your next raise?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, as you said, right, and as long as you are part of it, right, or you can be part of it, right, I don't think people should really worry about it. I think it's important to understand that change is inevitable, right, and or people should accept the change and try to understand what new skills or what new capabilities they need to learn in order to continue to remain competitive and continue to provide value for the organizations that they're working with, as well as continue to kind of uplift their profile and the value that they are kind of delivering to the organization. So for example, right, automation is kind of getting people rid of doing some of the very mundane and repetitive tasks that people don't want to do anyways, right? So it's really about seeing this as an opportunity to really uplift what they are doing and really upskill them to do higher value work.
Okay. All right. Well, we got to wrap now. I think another way you could have answered that question was the automation can help gather the information for what would go into the components of a raise. Though I haven't heard a lot of use cases around that. But at the end of the day, it's still your boss that's going to be responsible for you. So you got to look to them for that answer. All right. We have lots of information on the web in terms of blogs and content, and we did extend the offer there. If you're interested in the PEAK Matrix and you're an enterprise, you want to dig deeper on that, feel free to reach out to myself, Amar, or Barath. And with that, I wanted to thank Amar and Barath for their participation today, and do let us know if there's anything we can do to help you in the future.
Thanks, everyone.